Today we're going to be talking about how to care for indoor cacti and succulents. So they are generally really easy to care for actually, as long as you have enough light, I think is the most important thing. So I brought a few different examples of cacti and succulents that can be indoors, and there's also a bunch of other varieties other than these two that you can keep indoors as well. So, to start with, I have one of the most common ones here. The String of Things is really popular, the Senecio varieties. This one is a little String of Pearls is really common, and then String of Hearts we have. So these guys really like bright indirect light. If they have too much direct sunlight, it can be a little too much for them, so that's why they're a good indoor succulent, because they don't really get direct sun indoors usually. So they're really good for like hanging baskets, or kind of cool to put in like a little head planter that has some hair maybe trailing out of it. And so watering with these guys is important too, because you do want to make sure it dries out pretty much all the way, at least 90% before you water it again. Especially in the winter, you really want to cut back on watering any indoor succulents or cacti, or even outside too in the winter, because they kind of store water inside a lot, and watering them too much can rot their roots, and they just keep sucking up water and they can't dry out that way. But during the summer months, you can keep watering them as long as you make sure they dry out in between. So you can also fertilize your indoor cacti and succulents. If you do, it's important to use a low nitrogen fertilizer. So the NPK numbers, nitrogen, phosphorus, and potassium, the last two numbers should be the highest for cacti, because nitrogen is for fast-growing leafy plants, and cacti don't quite grow as much as those kinds, so it's important to kind of have a good phosphorus and potassium for them. So you can also keep typically outdoor succulents inside too, as long as you have enough light. For example, like this guy here, the spiky guys kind of like to have more direct sun at least. So usually a south-facing window is going to be your best bet for these guys, because it's going to be the most intense direct sun coming in through the day. So again, with these guys, you want to make sure they totally dry out again. And they are kind of cool, the spiky guys. They do like to flower a little bit, but sometimes they have to be more established, like a year or two old, before they can flower, and they have to have perfect conditions in order to flower too, like perfect light and water and all that. So I also have a couple more things here. I thought this one was really pretty, the Kalanchoe. Some people call it Kalancho, some people say it different ways, but there's all kinds of different varieties of these guys. The leaves are kind of a distinguished shape, kind of scalloped on the edges, and these are really good indoor plants too, kind of pretty flowers. They do need a lot of bright indirect light too. As long as they're in a room that has a bright window, they'll do just fine. But they do flower for about a month and a half, I would say, pretty long time. You can get them to reflower too if you keep fertilizing them as well. So they're really pretty, comes in all kinds of different colors, comes in double form, so it's got like double petals, which is really cool. And they're just really pretty and happy looking. So those are a fun one. And then also, if your succulents indoors don't have enough light, you'll see signs like they'll start to lose their color and get really leggy. So I brought this little guy for an example. He's doing really good right now because he's had some good sunlight. But usually the pinker ones are the ones that need a little more sun. So I've noticed the ones like indoors, these will kind of start to get leggier quicker than the ones that are more of a green-blue color, just because they need a little more sunlight to thrive. So they will kind of start to stretch and kind of grow out and start not to be so compact like this. And when that does happen, it'll usually start to happen within like a month or two of being inside. You can just kind of cut the top off and put it in some soil and propagate it, or you can even take these little leaves off as long as you keep the part that's connected to the base, so that's where all the little baby leaves can grow. But these are really easy to propagate, and so you can kind of fix legginess that way. So really the most important thing I think with succulents indoors is watering. You got to make sure it's totally dried out before you water again. And then lighting is really important too. But other than that, I think they're really good, easy plants to keep indoors, and they're really low maintenance as long as you make sure it's all dried out. But that's going to be it for today. And make sure to stay tuned in for any upcoming live streams, and follow the GreenHouse RG on Instagram, as well as Rogers Gardens. And we really appreciate you watching, and thanks for joining today. Bye-bye.